All right, check the mic. We're live, instant reaction for week 8 in between the end of the 4 o'clocks and Sunday Night Football. Lots of blowouts around the league today, Sam. Lots of blowouts. We're watching one last game right now. Denver up 44-24 over the Cowboys. Looks like they're going to seal that to move to 6-2. Where do you want to start on Blowout Sunday, Sam?
Well, why don't we start with a game that wasn't a blowout? The Bengals.
The New York Jets, actually, get their first win, 39-38 over the Bengals. 1-7 Jets. Bengals fall to 3-5. The Jets did the old, let's go for 2. Down 14. You're down 14. You score the touchdown. You go for 2. The announcers were confused. Then they figured it out. And that was the thing that put the Jets over the top, gave them a chance to come back and win 39-38.
Yeah, once the Jets only needed to kick an extra point to take the lead, it seemed to click with the announcers why you would go for 2 in the first time around. Yeah, I mean, it started off and you're like, how are the Jets this bad? Like, again, they should not be getting this badly wrecked in every single game. And then they did. For the first time, they actually managed to hang tough and be feisty and cling in it and keep making some plays. Took the lead with that sequence late on. And then, Joe Flacco and the Bengals, they had a chance late on, and Andre Yoshivas, Princeton, couldn't come up with a pass that looked like it was catchable.
It is, from a Cincinnati perspective, tough to blame their offense. They did put up 38 for the second straight game, moved the ball pretty well, but until the end, right? They did need to move the ball at the end and came up short. The Jets end up running for over 250 yards. And when we were calling them feisty all offseason, it was the run game. It was Fields in the designed run game. It was Breece Hall. I mean, that was a little bit of the expectation. That's what would keep them feisty. But Fields, he has a nice clean game, and then they make all the right moves at the end from a game management perspective, going for 2, so you get within 6 so that next touchdown, if you get it, is for the win, right? And it was a Breece Hall touchdown pass to Mason Taylor, the rookie tight end. That was the game winner for the Jets. Great call.
Yeah, crazy pass. It looked like he talked himself out of it. Like, it wasn't there early. He pulled it down. He thought about running. And then the end, he just went, what the hell? Let's throw it anyway. And Mason Taylor just mosses a dude at the back of the end zone, scores a touchdown.
And this one, of course, has huge implications on the season, right? What we were talking about last week, the reason why the Bengals win last week to get them just to 3-4 was because, hey, you got the Jets next week. You could get to 4-4. The Packers have the Steelers have a couple tough games coming up. Before you know it, you're right back in the AFC North race. But not so much. Bengals fall to 3-5, and that's going to be a tough one. And it's congrats to Aaron Glenn and the Jets, first win, and no champagne being popped by the 2008 Lions and 2016 Browns. They will remain the 2 winless teams in NFL history. Staying in the AFC North, the Ravens get the win, 30-16. They break their losing streak. Tyler Huntley gets the start. We didn't know this on Thursday. We assumed Lamar Jackson was back. That had been the plan the entire time. He does not go. I'm supposedly going to be playing this Thursday in Miami, but Huntley gets the start. Really clean game for Huntley. 53 yards on the ground, 17 of 22 passing, and the Ravens win by 2 scores. Weird game, Ravens and Bears here.
Not only did we not know this with Snoop Huntley and Lamar Jackson, it sounds like nobody did, and the Ravens may be in some trouble for the way that they listed Lamar Jackson on the injury report during this week. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out from this point on. It was close right up until Caleb Williams threw a pretty rough interception, which really set up the Ravens in Chicago in good field position. They took advantage of that. They scored again, and from that point on, the Bears weren't able to claw back into that. But that was this was a game that Chicago looked like they were clinging in, and then we're going to go and drive and try and win, and blew it instead.
Another one where I thought Caleb Williams and the Bears looked good on the script and really early in the game, and then they couldn't complete a pass beyond that. I thought Roma Dunze looked great for the Bears, but it didn't matter. And then, look, they're down 2 scores at the end, and we'll credit the Ravens in a second here. Down 2 scores at the end. The Bears have one last chance with no timeouts, a little over a minute left. That whole sequence was horrendous.
Yeah.
A pass short of the end zone, a failed QB sneak, and then getting up to the line, and you either have to run another sneak or run a play. They run a pass play, and Caleb Williams misses a wide open receiver in the end zone by a mile, and it was like, all right, game's over. Like, you had one last chance to at least go touchdown, onside kick, and they couldn't even get that right.
And that was set up by like a freak, for all the inconsistency in Caleb Williams. Like that play was set up by one of the positive freak plays that he can make, right?
Yeah.
Where he bounces around and behind the line of scrimmage, makes a couple of guys miss, and then finds this miracle pass to DJ Moore, who just about hauls it in and runs as far as he can. From a neutral perspective, not getting in then and there. I mean, they needed an onside kick anyway, so the chances of actually executing the comeback were always low. But if DJ Moore had just about got into the end zone on that play, we might have been, dealing with a much more interesting finish.
Yeah, certainly not the reason that they lost, but more of this, just like Thanksgiving last. It reminded me a little bit of Thanksgiving last year. We have this failed end of game sequence, and Caleb Williams is right in the middle of it. But look, credit the Ravens. They get their second win to move to 2-5, just to continue to stay alive here. Buy some time for Lamar Jackson to come back. Offense looked much better with Tyler Huntley than it had looked with Cooper Rush. We have seen Huntley. It was kind of like with Jake Browning. You'd seen this history where he had played well as a backup, and he did that. It was, again, very efficient. They got Derrick Henry in the end zone twice as well. Defense played much better than they had. Nate Wiggins had that big interception on Caleb Williams. So Ravens needed this one, and they took care of business to get the win. Let's go Houston Texans 26-15 over the 49ers. They completely controlled the ball in the first half, barely let the Niners even get the ball, like record low number of McCaffrey had about 2 touches well into the third quarter. Just as I'm ready to write off the Texans, just as I stop believing, Sam, one of the best games I've seen from CJ Stroud in a long time, and the Texans look really good in this win.
Yeah, I mean, their defense absolutely murdered the San Francisco offense. They didn't have the ball for that long, and when they did have the ball, it wasn't particularly successful. Mac Jones was under pressure a ton. It was an absolute destruction from the Texans defense. And then their offense, they did hold up. I mean, I think you're seeing this, like the offensive line is the problem there. So if they're able to survive in a game, and it's when it happens this season, it's against teams that don't have a pass rush. When they're able to survive, you see that CJ Stroud is still a good quarterback. You see that they have receiving talent, even without Nico Collins, who was out of the game. Like all the Iowa State receivers, 3 of them in this game, they're all making plays. Like this is a talented team that's being undermined at every step by the offensive line. So if they run into an opposition that doesn't let that happen, they can still go out there and have a good game. It also, it shows you what a slave to last week everybody is, including me. I mean, the last thing we saw was prime time, this no-name 49ers defense, playing out of their minds and looking awesome. And you're like, oh, I guess Robert Saleh is just a magician these days. So, no worries. And then you see today, they're blowing gaps. They're all over the place. You're like, oh, maybe the guys you've never heard of probably aren't that good at football.
I mean, it's a lot of what we said all year, though. I mean, maybe victim to recency bias, this last week, but the whole season, the Niners overcoming the inability to rush the passer, especially after Nick Bosa went down, they've survived to get to 5-2. And it felt like this game, it all caught up to them on that side. And then for Houston, they didn't completely play up to their potential, but certainly much better on offense than they've been in a while. And that defense has been outstanding all season. So a big win for the Texans to move to 3-4. Niners move to 5-3 in that competitive NFC West. We get the Buffalo Bills 40-9 over the Carolina Panthers. They're gearing up. They're coming off their bye. They're gearing up to play the Chiefs next week. We talked about this. Is this a trap game? Is this a look ahead? How are they going to handle it mentally? I don't know if they dominated as much as the scoreboard showed, but the turnovers, they forced a ton of turnovers. They won the turnover battle finally after losing back-to-back turnover battles, and that was the biggest difference in the game and why it was 40-9 for the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did dominate anyway, but on top of that, the Panthers also coughed the ball up multiple times, and you can't do that if you're going to try and win this type of game.
I didn't mean it like nobody expected Carolina to come back at any point here. All I'm saying is when there's AJ Epinesa with a nice interception sets them up. I mean, there was field position, and those turnovers were absolutely massive. So the Bills' run game, James Cook with 216 yards on the ground, felt like one of those games where, hey, run game, we don't need Josh Allen a whole lot. Allen did have to run a couple QB sneaks in there, but he only threw 19 passes, got sacked a couple times on top of that. So he didn't drop back a lot. But yeah, this is a good game, I think, for Buffalo to head into that Chiefs game next week, and then the Panthers fall to 4-4. First home loss for the Panthers. Tough one with Andy Dalton, and we'll see what happens. Dalton filling in this week did not play well at all with Bryce Young week to week at this point. I think they're hoping to have him back. I'm not really sure coming off the high ankle, though.
Yeah.
What else we got here? New England Patriots 32-13 over the Browns. It was close for a while, right into the second half. It was 9-7 at the half. New England, they had a great drive to start the second half, started to run the ball to the outside, take advantage of Cleveland's defense a little bit. Drake May, uber efficient again, outside of the sacks. Myles Garrett sacks him 5 times in this game, no matter what they threw at Myles Garrett. Didn't really matter. But Drake May, another efficient game for him, 18 of 24 for 282, and another long touchdown to Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, a long touchdown. It was a little bit of a slow start for the Patriots and for Drake May. And then, add to the fact that Myles Garrett is like in the backfield every single play. And you're like, all right, this could be a difficult game for them. And then Drake May, I think, answered another test, where he is under pressure. He is getting beat up a bit. He's taking a lot of hits on top of the sacks as well. And it didn't bother him at all. Like he wasn't rattled. He wasn't put off his game. He was able to play some of his best football late in this game and ultimately started to put up the numbers that really eased the game away for New England and, made it not a contest at all. So another impressive Drake May game in a different way than he's done previously, which is he's starting to stack these up, right? Like
as always. Okay.
Game against Buffalo, like a really good team, then a game against a sort of a trap opponent who, you didn't let complacency set in. Now a game where you are kind of getting your ass kicked a little bit and you still rise to the occasion. Like Drake May's answering a series of different tests every week.
Yeah, and for New England as a whole, we've mentioned a whole bunch of games that they should win, and they're winning them emphatically. Other than some quirky plays against the Saints a couple weeks ago, emphatic wins against New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland now. And you're right, May's downfield accuracy just outstanding. And he, despite getting sacked 5 times by Garrett, six total, was able to bounce back and make those throws. Dylan Gabriel, as much as I've defended his arm strength, Sam, definitely playing like a guy that can't throw the ball down the field all that well. Not looking great. Big interception that he threw to Robert Spillane that helped set up the blowout for New England. So it sounds like Kevin Stefanski is going to stick with Dylan Gabriel coming out of the bye, but of course they were already asking the questions. This offense not looking good for Cleveland. And once they fell behind, didn't really have much of a chance against the Patriots. Let's go. My biggest surprise of the day, Miami Dolphins 34-10 over the Atlanta Falcons. Now, there are some circumstances, but Miami played well. This is the best game they've played in quite a while. They moved to 2-6. Disappointing Falcons loss, falling to 3-4. They had no Michael Penix, no Drake London, so it was Kirk Cousins under center, but disappointing game for Atlanta and impressive by Miami.
Yeah, and if you told me based off just that information, Kirk Cousins is coming in, that we've seen last season, Kirk Cousins games can be anything from like a 400-yard explosion of offense to this doesn't work at all, and it's a disaster. So if you told me before the game, Drake London's out, Penix is out, Cousins is starting, and therefore they're going to score 10 points, I would be like, all right, I can buy that. The fact that their defense got annihilated by the Miami offense based off the last several weeks of action for both sides of that, Miami's offense and Atlanta's defense, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. So Atlanta is there's a few teams that are in this bucket this year, but Atlanta are one of the most confusing teams week to week in the NFL this year. They've gone out there and throttled, the Buffalo Bills, looked amazing doing it. And then a game like this where, even just the run game, like Miami has a historically terrible run game, and the Falcons weren't really able to run the ball.
Run defense, I know it was what you mean there, and right. I hate that as an analyst. We'll talk about this in depth tomorrow. I do know that even teams with a bad run defense in any given week, they can just play with a little bit more passion. They can just not blow 2 or 3 gaps like they've been, and play hard and load the box and stop the run game. And that's what Miami did. So credit to them finally this year, slowing down the run game, slowed down Bijan Robinson, allowed only 2.8 per carry to Bijan. And once you do that, Kirk Cousins, you could tell he was not on the same page as receivers, missing throws when they were open. It looked like, the backup who was thrown in there and hadn't played. He looked rusty, and you don't know what you're going to get from backup quarterbacks. Sometimes they come out and surprise for a few weeks, and Cousins just was unable to elevate this Falcons offense. But man, credit Miami. It was the best game they played offensively in a while. Tua, really smooth throwing the ball. Jalen Waddle running behind, running through the defense for a long 43-yard touchdown. So best we've seen from the Dolphins, I would say, all season.
Yeah.
4 o'clock games. We got some Colts fans. The Colts fans are showing up in the chat, 38-14 over the Tennessee Titans. The Colts are at this point where it's like, all right, they were supposed to blow them out again, and they did. And it was never really close. The Titans did their usual. They put together one good drive and show signs of life, one out of 10 drives or whatever it is. But, man, the Colts just a juggernaut offensively and so tough to stop.
They really are. I mean, they're just a monster at this point. Like, we've reached the point where they are showing up against teams that they're supposed to dominate, and they are. And so they're setting these like 2007 Patriots records like week on week, right? They're putting themselves up there with some of the greatest offenses of the 21st century. And maybe at some point that'll run out, but it isn't yet. And you got to give them credit for that. I mean, they're not just beating the teams that they're supposed to beat on paper. They're stomping them. The Titans they were just overmatched both sides of the ball. Jonathan Taylor was an absolute beast in this game. Speed, quickness, cuts, stiff arms, power. Like the second touchdown that he scored, nuts. Like, there was no way he was going to break the angle of two different guys chasing him down and go all the way for a touchdown.
80-yard touchdown for Jonathan Taylor. His second, he had 2 touchdowns in this game. He's up to 12, I believe, on the season.
And a third receiving.
And a third receiving, that's right. So unbelievable run game again. Michael Pittman with an awesome contested catch touchdown in there. Daniel Jones, another really good game for him with 272 through the air and the 3 scores. So, yeah, the Colts, they just have answers every week, man. Like we're saying, Alec Pierce, you and I want to put that on the show tomorrow, the fact that you and I DM each other immediately. Like, there's the Pierce 50-yard, exactly 50 yards, by the way. There's the Pierce 50-yarder. It's a weekly occurrence. So the Colts have the deep threat, the intermediate, the short game, the run game. Daniel Jones making it all work. From Tennessee's perspective, I use the word rhythm for their offense this entire year. Still no rhythm. Like, just no rhythm passes, no sustained drives for this offense. And I'm not saying that it's not a great situation for Cam Ward, but at some point you just want to see him go on a run, put together a full game, put together 3/4 of a game. I don't think we've seen that yet from Cam Ward. I think that's going to start to become a little alarming, though we're smart enough not to write anybody off after 1 year. We know how that always turns out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough game by him, but I think the situation is pretty terrible. I did think there were more signs of life from him in this game than we've seen previously. There were some big plays in there. There was another big play that he didn't quite make, but at least he took a shot at it. So, yeah, I mean, they were overmatched everywhere in this game, so I'm not too down on him from this performance.
Oh, I skipped the Philly win. How could I skip Philly? 38-20 over the Giants in the 1 o'clock window. Little revenge game for the Eagles. Started with Saquon with a 65-yard touchdown. It looked like last year's Eagles team, didn't it? You get the long run out of the way. Sometimes it was early in the first quarter. Sometimes it was in the fourth quarter when the defense was tired. Get the long run out of the way. Saquon did leave with an injury, though, after rushing in, receiving touchdown. Tank Bigsby came in, and he had over 100 yards as well. But the Eagles got their run game going and looked more like the Eagles we expected coming into the season.
Yeah, they did. So injury from Saquon, it kind of looked like he pulled up with a hamstring, maybe something like that. Certainly a kind of muscle injury as opposed to anything else. It was like at the end of a long run. We also got a Scatterbo injury, which looked a lot more serious than that. They've already claimed, I think, that it's a broken, dislocated ankle type of deal. One of those ones where he comes up and his foot's pointing in the wrong direction. Horrible luck from him. He'll be done for the year. This was also, so look, it's a game that doesn't end up very close. This was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in my life. And I don't mean that in one direction, though. I think if you were totting them all up, it went more towards Philadelphia than it did to the Giants. But it was just catastrophic start to finish in every direction, including what was a perfectly legitimate fumble from Jalen Hurts on a tush-push play. Kayvon Thibodeau just strips the ball from him. And the refs come in. They're like, no. We ruled forward progress was done. The whistle didn't come until like several seconds later. So
that felt easy to change. That felt easy enough to change. I get what they said because they said they had to on review show instant fumble forced upon contact, which we didn't get necessarily, but that was
Well,
rough.
the thing is, the rule is sufficiently ambiguous that there's no detail on, like, it seems to suggest that if a guy basically decides his forward progress has been halted, play's over. Doesn't matter if he hasn't blown the whistle yet. The play ended when he decided the forward progress was done. So if the side judge decides his forward progress is stopped before the ball has been stripped out, the play's over and you can't review it because it's not a reviewable play. So, I mean, that's insane. But that appears to be what happened on this play. But there was a long touchdown the Giants scored late that was taken off the board for offensive pass interference where, I mean, the only reason he was pushing off was because a guy had hold of his hand at the time and he's just trying to get the hell off and make the play. Like I said, I think if you were totting up every single bad call, I think it would lean towards Philadelphia. But the broader point is this was just one of the worst refereed games in the NFL for years. I mean, this brought back, Pavlovian reactions to remember the replacement refs back in the day where they locked out the real officials. It was absolutely horrific.
Saints Patriots was up there just a few weeks ago. I mean, we've had a few of those now where it's just back and forth. Not great. Eagles moved to 6-2 in this one. Giants fall to 2-6. We were questioning, hey, can they keep the momentum? The Giants, still a ton of optimism around Jackson Dart. Unfortunate with the Scadaboo injury, but 2-6 now. A couple tough losses the last couple weeks between, especially a heartbreaker last week with Denver. But the Eagles needed a little revenge game, and I thought they did a nice job to say, look, we're still the Eagles, even without AJ Brown. We can throw it, we can run it, and bad calls notwithstanding. Let's go Bucs 23-3 over the Saints. Not much to talk about in this one except Antoine Winfield. Every time I looked up, he was running for a touchdown that didn't count. Yeah. Pick 6 early from Anthony Nelson, and that was pretty much the highlight for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, brutal. The Saints were conspiring across the board to cough the ball up every time they touched it. Rattler wasn't good. Chuck came in. They benched Rattler to try and spark the offense. I got mixed feelings on that. On the one hand, I get it. They're not going anywhere. They're trying to turn the ball over every time they touch it. Why not try and see if the backup can spark something? On the other hand, it's pretty harsh to Rattler this season, given, the situation around him generally is not great. And he's played pretty well. And like the first half that he plays not particularly well, you're like, all right, bench with you. I can see both sides of that, but it felt pretty harsh. And more to the point, when Chuck came in, he didn't spark anything, really. They still tried to turn the ball over every time they touched it. They still didn't really get anywhere going. Tampa Bay's defense was destroying them, even despite the refs saying, no, that one didn't count, and that one didn't count, and this one's not counting either. Absolute beatdown, even though, Saints defense did a pretty good job. Like Tampa Bay struggled themselves. Baker didn't have the best game again. But they were never going to go anywhere, so it was never going to be close.
Yeah, we'll break it all down tomorrow. Tampa Bay's offense not looking as good, and then same thing, referee issues where there was the forced fumble the first time Antoine Winfield returned it for a touchdown, and they said there was a whistle blown. Sam?
That one, at least I think there was a whistle blown. Like, that's different to we've just decided the play's over. Nobody blew a whistle, but don't worry about it.
Everybody wants the ball, the chip and the ball, and that'll solve everything. It's like, well, it still comes down to the ref saying when's forward progress. Like, when's this guy down? Like, it still comes down to some level of human error.
Inadvertent whistle is bad enough, right? Because there's nothing you can do about that. It's like, oh, we just screwed up and accidentally blew it too early. When your case is, no, there was no whistle. We've just decided that the play was dead and didn't tell anybody. I mean, that's absolutely insane if that's what the rule.
Let's wrap it up with the CBS game of the week. Denver Broncos 44-24 over the Dallas Cowboys. I expected a more competitive game. Bo Nix with an early interception, but that was it. After that, man, Denver's offense was cooking. You could tell sometimes, when teams have injuries in the secondary in particular, you were asking, hey, why didn't Dallas attack Denver a certain way with Surtain down and everything? Denver attacked Dallas's weaknesses and their injuries in the secondary. Couldn't stop the passing attack. Bo Nix, 247 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier when your weaknesses are almost everybody. I mean, they ran out of safeties in the game, literally. They had cornerbacks lining up at safety because they just run out of bodies at that spot. So it's definitely easier to just start throwing the ball around and maybe we avoid the one guy that's still standing from the original defense. as opposed to there's one clear weak link. Let's try and target that guy. But yeah, like the get right spot for the Denver offense, which had struggled for 7 of the last 8 quarters effectively, caught fire because they went up against this Dallas defense that can't stop anybody usually, and were banged up and missing most of their secondary.
Bo had 4 touchdowns. Maybe his best throw was dropped in the end zone by Cortland Sutton. Just a beautiful post that he put on his hands. It was just as good as the one that he threw to Pat Bryant, though, for a long touchdown. Our guy Troy Franklin had 2 scores as well. So, yeah, Denver's offense was cooking. Long touchdown run by R.J. Harvey early on. So they got the run game going between Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. And then the worst game for Dak against Denver, right? I mean, it's like all season Dak is elevating this offense, and he's under pressure. Made a couple nice throws early under pressure, but just caught up to him. A couple bad decisions in there. He finishes the game with 2 picks, and nothing like what he was able to do throughout the rest of the season, really, when facing pressure and trying to, elevating that offense.
And that, I mean, it makes some sense. Like these games make more sense than the rest of the season. Like it kind of stands to reason that given the kind of pressure he's going to be under against the league's best pass rush, effectively, you're going to get a rough Dak Prescott performance. The fact that he was playing as well as he was for the first 6-7 weeks of the season, like that's the miracle. Now, this is kind of what you would expect to see given what he's working with on paper. And, that Denver pass rush is just so nasty. I know they didn't get, a million sacks in this game, but they were causing problems all the way through it.
We'll keep an eye on the Patrick Surtain. He had a shin injury, then a shoulder injury. The shoulder knocked him out. We'll see what that ends up becoming for Denver. But yeah, they're looking good again. And I love the whole perspective. Denver moving to 6-2. They're a leverage play away from being 7-1. The same way the Colts are, the AD Mitchell game away from being undefeated. So we've got some good teams in the AFC and some good matchups coming up here. Denver, 3rd straight win now against the NFC East, who they've dominated this season. All right, man. We've got the full thing tomorrow. We've been going up to 3 hours. We'll see what we do tomorrow with all the blowouts. But we still have Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers' revenge game against the Packers. We'll break it all down tomorrow morning. Check the mic. 7 a.m. sharp. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hit thumbs up. Join the memberships. Hit subscribe. Do all the things.